Indiana's gas tax has remained steady for quite some time as well.
Indiana has a gas tax rate of 18 cents per gallon, and that is per gallon that you buy, rather than based on the price like sales tax might be. And that rate has stayed the same since 2003.
The amount of money that has been receipted in keeps declining, and some of that is because of fuel efficiency. Some of that is because there's more hybrid cars and more electric cars out there. But historically, the gas tax has been declining, and the amount of monies that we get from the federal government for highways also has been declining.
Our federal highway funding comes back to Indiana through a complex formula based on how the federal law is passed. And Indiana, over the years, has been a donor state. We send more money to Washington than we get back to Indiana.
Indiana gets back, now based on the most recent highway bill, about 97% of the money we send to Washington, D.C. to help us work with our roads.
Cities, towns, and counties have some other sources of local income taxes, and cities can use some property tax money and so forth. But it's primarily fuel tax is the source of funding for roads in Indiana.
The gas tax money goes to a number of places. Some of it goes to the State Highway Road and Construction and Improvement Fund. Some of it goes to the State Highway Fund, which is for INDOT. Which is the operations of, INDOT. And some of it goes to the gas tax fund, which then is distributed to the motor vehicle highway account formula, which out of that money, 53% goes to the state and 47% goes to the local.
When people go to the pump in Indiana and buy our gasoline, they're levied a 7% tax for sales, and most of that goes to the general fund. And people, when they buy gas in Indiana, think that money goes toward roads. Fortunately, in the last session of the Indiana legislature, we were successful in getting a portion of that redirected to the road fund. So cities, towns, counties, and the Indiana DOT now get 1% of all the sales tax in Indiana, which equates to about 15% of the sales tax on fuel, now goes to road maintenance and construction.
In addition, because of budget constraints, we had some of the gas tax money that went to fund the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, state police operations, and then a small amount to the Department of Revenue. We took that $140 million and we put it back into INDOT and to Motor Vehicle Highway Fund.
Well, first and foremost, for the state gas tax to be adequate, I think that we need to look at indexing that. That state gas tax has not increased since 2003. The federal tax long beyond that. And the buying power of those taxes is eroded with inflation. So indexing it to the cost of inflation, cost of construction, you pick the index you want, but it needs to be indexed so it remains current and we're not building today's roads with yesterday's dollars.
There was a transportation summer study committee, and they looked at different ways to address the shortfalls, particularly those that they're anticipating in the future. And one of the topics of discussion was looking at taxing people on miles driven as opposed to just a flat tax rate on the gallon of gas. I don't see any proposals out there this session to move in that direction. It was just a point of discussion.
I think in a perfect world, the way road use ought to be assessed is by the amount you use them. So a vehicle miles traveled tax or fee would be perfect. There are a lot of issues, though, that people have with privacy and so forth. I don't want the government tracking me and knowing where I drive and how many miles I drive and so forth. But any of us who have a cell phone, we've already breached that. They already know.